Hi, thanks for coming. This presentation is Minnesota Lakes Edge at Low Water. We are just going to jump right in. Edges are a pseudo-technical term for those spaces between ecosystem zones that have kind of their own ecosystems associated. So we've got the forests, we've got the water, and we have that in between space. And so that is your edge. And in this circumstance, when it is between forest and lake, it can be kind of marshy in nature with plants and grasses associated there. You'll also find a lot of wildlife along that edge. It's a great place to find safety, security. You'll have a lot of bugs kind of laying eggs in that area, and between transitional phases there you can find a lot of birds because they eat the bugs. They can also hide in the grasses for protection and things like that. We've got turtles that might like the grass. You might find other animals as well. So it's a great ecosystem, and it's definitely worth studying. This is just a very basic presentation, of course. Um, it can be a fairly diverse area, this ecosystem between ecosystems, with soil, sand, and rock, as well as different grasses and sedges sprouting up. And of course, every lake has dynamic shorelines. So you might have one type of edge ecosystem in one area and it transitions to another sort of edge. You're not going to find the same grasses generally around an entire lake. And so, especially this one in particular is a little bit bigger where these photographs were taken. This was just one lake where these photos were taken. And so there are differences in the shorelines, more grassy versus more rocky, things like that. But they will vary. Common type of edge plant in Minnesota is the cattail. This one was actually photographed in the late spring, early summer, and the fluff is still attached to the seeds of the plant. Of course, these are oftentimes green, and you'll see the tip of that cattail more intact. This one's looking a little ripped up. The fluff is the kind of propelling unit. It's meant to get caught in the wind and move that seed elsewhere, so that way it kind of reduces any crowding you might have in that ecosystem. So the fluff carries the seeds up and out, and you will have dispersed cattails. But this is before they have greened up for the year. And I met a kid, and they did actually say, da da da, it's a hot dog plant. I'm vegetarian, vegan, and so that didn't necessarily appeal to me, but I did have to laugh because I do see it. The hot dog plant. So cattails. Normally, the water line is up by the green grass. If you look in this photo here, you can see there is obvious grass here, tufting. Looks like some water may normally go up and behind some of that grass, just because of how it's portrayed in that photo. But you see some other green elements coming up. In the photo, there are some lily pads there, just grass in general, but it's also very black. You can see the rocks are up. You can see the water line on that right rock, where it's kind of darker, and that is where the water line normally would be, presumably. Up where that black line is around that base of that right rock on that photo. But there are lily pads coming in despite the lack of water. You can see that black. You can see the lily pads actually in the bottom left hand of that uh, corner photo there, or the corner of that photo. So they're a little tougher to see. I don't know that I have a better photo of that in this particular presentation. I think that will be mentioned in another presentation as well. This actually inspired a number of presentations. Definitely check our channel if you do want to know more. The soil exposed has accumulated the detritus of decomposing flora and fauna from the aquatic ecosystem. That black color does kind of connote decomposition of living matter. You'll see a lot of plants and, well, plants depending, but you know, decomposing matter. You'll see it oftentimes turn black. You can see that in dead leaves, like fallen fall leaves. You'll see that in like decomposing squirrels and things like that. That black is a sign of decomposed matter. But this is the lake bottom with water above it, which I did realize upon making this presentation. It is exceptionally hard to capture the actual bottom of the lake with light reflecting off of the surface of the water, because it will capture the clouds from the sky. It will capture your silhouette. It will capture the reflections of the trees around the edge. So that it was a bit of a challenge getting these photographs. You can see the larger photo does have clouds reflected, but you can also see a red oak leaf kind of in that bottom right corner of the right photo. I just tried to position myself to act as a shade from the reflective. And then I had to do some creative editing of the photos to try and get the materials that I wanted in the photos because of that reflective surface. But you can kind of see it's murky. This is not a swimming beach. This is not a swimming edge per se. It does have some sandy element to it, but it is. It has been taken by the black detritus. And that detritus may be composed of dead aquatic plants and algae, as we kind of discussed. This is a photo of a lot of algae that's kind of come up to the shoreline, floated in from who knows where. Of course, the detritus isn't just plant life. This is again late spring, early summer, and so we do have some of this from the overwinter, I'm sure. I'm not sure how it all got pulled up, uprooted. I don't know if someone else maybe did a little bit cleaning out of their beach area that this floated over into ours, but presumably this would have sunk if it were attached. These are plants, so they're attached to the ground, to the soil, so they should have, in theory, decomposed in that space, but it's quite a bit that was uprooted, so maybe someone else cleaned a beach area, that this ended up all in one place. But it's not just plants, potentially algae. It can also be animal elements, like fecal matter, and potentially animal corpses if you do have any dead fish or bugs. Things like that might end up in this detritus as well. Different sources of nitrogen and other positive chemicals for soil makeup. Just anything that you might find in this ecosystem that might decompose. With low water, the soil can be seeded by land plants beyond the traditional boundaries of the edge. This is actually the edge that should have been underwater, and it obviously was exposed. You can see some green coming up as well in the darker soil material. We also have some shells there. Which indicates these are animals, or rather bugs, that do live underwater. Some of them can survive and be okay kind of above water, or in that mixed environment. These are edge dwellers generally, so they might be okay, but otherwise they might be prone to predators finding them. Um, so it's just unique that they are exposed in this way. As the slow water is recent, the aquatic plants are still present in the area. Again, okay, this is actually a better photo. I did put it in this presentation. A better photo of the lily pads. They are accompanied by weeds, grasses, but this one is an aquatic plant that is missing out on that water, but still actually doing fine. I would like to check back. This I was just thinking about this the other day, and see if they develop normally without that water, because lily pads normally do get that slime along the bottom of the pad, as well as along the stem, as a sort of, it's like gelatinous and very smooth. um, so I would be intrigued. Not all of them have them all of the time, but I would be curious to see what would happen with these particular lily pads, because they are on the earth, they are on the ground, they don't have that moisture to protect them, and they aren't floating above their stems. They are obviously directly on the earth. So kind of an interesting situation that we've got there. Obviously, the low water can be detrimental to that ecosystem, just because, um, like in this last slide, we do have the shells might be more prone to predators. They might actually need that moisture more than, um, you know, more often than they might, in their current positioning without that water above them. Um, so obviously it wasn't that way when they settled there, if they settled in the past year. Um, so it's just very unique. This is a different edge example. The other one was fairly open. It didn't have quite the same grasses, um, just because and that is also because it was cleared a little bit by humans. I don't know how long ago, if it was perhaps more grassy, but it's been this way for however many years. It just wasn't. Um, I can attest to if it had been cleared previously. But this is a different style of edge. It has the cattails, the grasses, and this is also at low water, so you can kind of see it does have the water there. You see a lot of the dead grass, the thatch, and that kind of is why we mentioned earlier it can be kind of marshy, because with marshes you do have that accumulation of that thatch and it kind of creates almost like like a bog. You can, if it gets thick enough, you can even almost walk on it. But of course, this is this is an edge and not a bog, so it's not going to necessarily have that same level of security and thatch. So that would be something that we could look at also moving forward, how bog-like it gets. Obviously, this is thick. These cattails have been in place for a solid amount of time. But it's just something to kind of watch out for. Of course, another note is that the human elements can factor in, not just if they have been cleared, 20 years ago, by potential, sellers of the land. It's if you have boats as well, they can kind of disrupt that edge. You can see in this photo, this is a pontoon boat, and the pontoons are riding through that sand and kind of cutting through the detritus. You can see the trails there, so that will affect the ecosystem. If you have docks, if you've got other play equipment, platforms, those things can also disrupt the lay of the land and how those things happen over time. A little variability like this is generally, presumably, kind of expected with the natural environment. Like you can get tracks like this. Not like this with animal life, but or like if a log had fallen and a beaver had picked it up, you might get a track like this. So this is potentially arguably minor compared to different like chemicals that might be associated with the gasoline and things of that nature. That's definitely a different presentation. We're just talking about the edge and the basic shoreline right now, but humans are a factor. If you do have that equipment, those stuffs for play in the water, these shorelines can also be raked, mucked out for optimum swimming. This is a sandy beach, and I don't know if that was. You can see this is sand in this photo underneath that muck. So I don't know if that was brought in, laid down. It's fairly thin, and we'll look at that. There are different types of sand, different types of sediments that are kind of sandy. We'll look at that probably in a different presentation, but this might have been brought in. I can't say because we didn't bring it in that I'm aware of. But who knows, when they were first developing this area, when they were first getting the lots ready for sale, what they had built and what they had kind of played with, putzed with, to make it more commercially interesting for residents. So I can't say for sure how much of that sand is native, but it is a factor, and getting it ready for like swimming, raking and mucking out the weeds and the detritus. Those are all factors that go into shoreline maintenance, and this one has not been maintained quite like that. Obviously, it does still have that human footprint though with that pontoon. So, are there any questions?